we got a special treat for our listeners. They've been begging for this. As we throw to our player interview.
This has definitely been something that they've been begging for. I've seen a lot of it, a lot of begging.
Let's see how he does here. We have our player of the week, Hanco Germishuys, who we spoke to early today, but no Pete Steinberg, no Professor, no Dan Power. Stats boy, Aaron Castro. He took the baton and ran with it. It's Olympic gold, folks. Enjoy the interview. It's a good one.
The big thing for us as a team that went very well was our defense. We put a lot of pressure on them, tried to be in their faces, line speed, just closing them down from the outside in. Our scrums and our lineouts, we put a lot of focus into our scrums and lineouts, and then the end of the day it paid off for us. Big thing was coming over from South Africa. My dad moved here before us. So I told him the only way I'll move to America is if he found me a local club. And luckily in Omaha, they had like 6 or 7 high school teams already. So I came over, started playing with them, got picked to represent Nebraska and went to the Rocky Mountain Challenge. And then that's where I got picked up for the USA when I was 14. And that's just how my path led, was through the 8th grades. It still feels like when I was 19 years old, when I got my first email from the USA team. Every time you get that email, it brings you back to that first time you got it. It never gets old. It's always a new experience, gives you goosebumps to represent your country. So every time when I got that email, it just felt like it was the first time again to represent.
Right, and what we mean by a pressure defense is a defense where defenders launch and stay square, right? So they don't drift. Now, in the modern rugby union defense, everyone has a piece that's a pressure defense. So for most teams, the middle of the field or the middle of the defense, those players stay square because it allows you to be a very strong wall. It allows you to create 2-player tackles, right? And it allows you to squeeze in and take away offloads. Right. And so you see this a lot. I think the AGs are doing this. I think NOLA have really improved in their middle defense. I think the Giltinis do this really well. Like, you basically stop the teams from being able to move the ball wide by going forward, by being really, really strong in the middle. Right. And so so the first thing is, what you want to do is you want to find some way to be able to break that down. And that's why you see teams with ball runners with short passes either side, right? So they're not looking for a long pass. They're looking for a supporter that's basically on their shoulder, and they're trying to get that guy through a half gap outside of the defender that's on the ball carrier, right? And the reason they want to do that is that they're not really trying to get a break. They just don't want a strong shoulder to hit them. So if I'm a ball carrier and I take the ball against the middle defense that's a pressure defense and is staying square, and I run, 2 shoulders are going to hit me and I'm going to go backwards, right? But if I'm able to commit my defender and pass into the gap just outside me, and that player has a pretty good angle, he will be tackled, but it won't be as strong a shoulder, and that guy will be able to get over the gain line. So the first thing you've got to do to beat a pressure defense is you have to go forward. You'll see that from first phase, from the scrum and the line out, and then you have to continue to go forward, right? This is the challenge you have against ATL. And the reason why I would run the ATL defense if I was an MLR coach is it requires a high level of execution, right? So maybe you don't do this against England, right? Or you don't do it against the Springboks because they have that high level of execution. But with MLR being a developing league, if you don't get a go forward against ATL, you might as well kick it.
All right, let's do this weekend's game, Pete. Okay, Seattle at San Diego. Get your darts out. This is one of those ones where a dart may actually be more accurate.
Yeah, I mean, so what's interesting to me about this game is that San Diego are missing a couple of players that will be off. Seattle, I think, are missing a couple of players too. I'm really interested to see because I'm now fascinated by what Alan Clark is doing with Seattle and seeing like Foodie at 12 last week. So what's the rabbit out of the hat this time? But it's at San Diego. I think now they're out of it. Like, is Joe Peterson going to play? Are they going to look at some young guys too? I don't know. I mean, I think in these, when there's non-playoff implications, it's really difficult to know what to do now. But I kind of feel, I still feel like San Diego have a lot of quality, and Seattle, Alan Clark's like experimenting for performance, not necessarily for outcome. So I think I'll still go with San Diego. I think that this might be a fun game. I think this might be like a 35-30 game. I hope it's a 35-30 game.
Hope it's a 55-50 game. But yeah, I'm thinking San Diego as well. Home field advantage. As long as Peterson and Paddy Ryan and those guys play, Nate Augsburger's back, and you look really dynamic. So you get them in there. Bjorn Basson, Cam Clark. There's just some good players in there. I just think on paper they look a little stronger than Seattle. All right, New York at New England. This is the last ever game at Union Point Stadium. There you go.
Are you doing any of these games this weekend, or you have the weekend off?
I'm doing Seattle, San Diego, DC, Toronto, and NOLA, LA. I'm doing 3 games this weekend. We have 3 national games.
You are the voice of MLR.
2 Fox. Only for the big show, man. I'm like Jim Nance now. I get on the private jet. They fly me in for the big games. And I just go and play golf.
So this is a really tough one because New York have been on a run, but they, New England are at home. New England didn't play great. I think Walker is a great player, but playing him at 10, I think you missed something. I think that he's too easily controlled by the defense at 10. I'd prefer to see him like at 15. But I think, I think in these sorts of situations, you go with the team that you think you have something to play for, right? And so I think New York has something to play for. So I think I'll go with New York on this one, but I think it's going to be really close. And I think this is going to be a great game. I think this is going to be like 21-18 New York.
Yeah. I think Ryan Martin was the best man for the job, but I don't think anyone gets as much out of that roster as what Ryan Martin did this year, just the quality of coach he is. So it's a shame that they did lose that game to NOLA, because I was really rooting for him to make a run there and get into the playoffs. It looks like their fans have been great, their numbers have been good, so they're well supported. They're doing great things up there in New England. But yeah, I think New York can put a bit of distance between themselves and NOLA before a ball is kicked the next day for this one. But they're missing a lot. No Breakley, no Sabetta, no Hanco, no Andy Ellis. Maybe the return of Dan Hollinshead. Maybe. Naughty. No Naughty. He's gone with Canada. I know I'm forgetting someone. I know I am. But yeah, this will be a good one. Yeah, I'm leaning towards what you're saying, though. New York, more to play for. All right, DC at Toronto in Atlanta. This could be a roster. Like, what does Toronto have left in the closet?
Yeah, I'm feeling. Yeah, I was really impressed with the young guys that Toronto pulled out and put on to help them come back against New York. I'm not as impressed by DC. I think I'm going to go with Toronto. I think that, I think they've got some depth that they'll pull out. But I think this will be a bit of a wild game. I think it's going to be like swings back and forth. I think it like the fact if it breaks up, that might help DC because they've got so many good players that can play off the cuff. But 32-30 to Toronto.
Yeah, this will be so. Obviously, it's well known Toronto missing a ton of players to Canada and Uruguay. For DC, no Jamison Farner-Schultz, no Mike Yusufeni-Fangai, no Mike DeBoulis, and Stan South is out for the year through injury. So there's 4 pretty critical players. The Baby Arrows, huh? Is this the Baby Arrows?
Baby Arrows? Oh, I love it.